The letter came on a Tuesday. Not a text, not a phone call. A actual handwritten letter. The kind people only send when they want you to feel every single word cut into you. I found it tucked between the feed bills on my kitchen table, and the moment I saw my sister's perfect handwriting on that fancy cream envelope, I knew. I just knew. My hands were still shaking from pulling a calf that didn't want to be born. There was blood under my fingernails and mud caked on my jeans. And when I opened that letter and read those words, I swear to God, time just stopped. Scarlett, you're not invited to the wedding. Your lifestyle doesn't match the image we need to present. Please try to understand. I read it 3 times. Then I walked to my truck, sat in the driver's seat, and laughed until I cried. Because my baby sister, the one I raised half her life, the one I sent to design school, the one whose wedding I was paying $87,000 for, had just uninvited me to my own family. Here's what nobody tells you about being the strong one in your family. People will take and take and take until you're hollow, and then act surprised when you finally have nothing left to give. For 9 years, I'd been the one holding everything together. When Daddy died and left us with this farm and a mountain of debt, Mama looked at me, not Olivia, me, and said, "You're going to have to handle this." I was 27 years old. Olivia was 20. She cried for 3 days, then packed her bags for Fort Lauderdale to follow her dreams. I stayed here in Okeechobee, waking up at 4 a.m. every morning to feed cattle, learning how to run a business I never asked for, watching my friends get married and have babies while I chose between buying hay or buying myself a new pair of boots. And I did it. I kept the farm alive. I sent Olivia money for rent. I paid for Mama's prescriptions. I funded Olivia's design classes, her car insurance, her trips to South Beach, her life. Last Christmas, when Olivia showed up with Preston Ashford III on her arm, all polo shirts and trust fund smile, and announced they are getting married at the Palm Beach Country Club, you know what I said? I said, "Congratulations, baby girl. Whatever you need, I got you." Whatever you need. And I meant it. I opened my savings account that had $140,000 in it, money I'd been saving to expand the farm, maybe buy the property next door, maybe finally take a vacation. And I started writing checks. The venue, the dress, the flowers, the photographer who charged more for 1 day than I made in 3 months. Preston's family had money, sure, but Olivia wanted to contribute equally to prove she wasn't just marrying rich. Except she didn't have any money. She had me. 2 months before the wedding, I'd paid $87,000 of a $120,000 budget. And then that letter came. I sat in my truck for maybe 20 minutes just staring at the steering wheel. Then I did something I'd never done in my entire life. I chose me. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. Every vendor, every deposit, every single thing I'd paid for. "Hi, this is Scarlett Hayes. I need to cancel my order." "Yes, I understand there's a cancellation fee." "That's fine. Can you send the refund to this account?" By the time the sun came up over the pasture, I'd canceled $63,000 worth of Olivia's perfect wedding. My phone started ringing around 7 a.m. Mama first, then Olivia, then Mama again. I didn't answer. I just sat on my porch with my coffee, watched my cows graze in the morning light, and waited. Because here's the thing about knocking down a house of cards. You don't have to do much. You just pull out the bottom card and watch everything else fall. And somewhere in a high-rise condo in Miami, my sister's perfect life was about to collapse. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel sad. I felt awake, like I'd been sleepwalking through my own life and someone finally slapped me hard enough to open my eyes. The wedding was in 8 weeks, and I wasn't invited. But I had a feeling I was about to become the most important person at that event anyway. If you've ever been the one holding everything together while someone else took the credit, hit that like button. And if you think Scarlett should have kept paying for a wedding she wasn't even invited to, well, you can scroll past. But for everyone who's tired of being treated like a bank instead of family, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because what happens next? Olivia is about to learn that you can't build a fairy tale on someone else's back. Drop a comment. Have you ever been uninvited from something you paid for? The first voicemail came in at 7:14 a.m. Mama's voice, tight and shrill like a wire about to snap. Scarlett Marie Hayes, you call me back right this instant. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is not how we handle family business. Delete. The second one, 3 minutes later. Scarlett, baby, please, let's just talk about this. You're upset, I understand, but you can't just... Delete. By 7:30, there were 6 more. I stopped listening after Olivia's first one, where she called me a jealous, vindictive bitch who never wanted to see her happy. That one almost made me laugh. Almost. I was in the barn feeding the cattle when my phone started ringing instead of just collecting voicemails. Mama. Decline. Olivia. Decline. Mama again. I finally answered on the 4th call, putting it on speaker while I forked hay into the trough. Hey, Mama. My voice came out calmer than I felt, which was either growth or shock. I couldn't tell which. Scarlett, what have you done? She wasn't yelling, which somehow made it worse. This was her disappointed voice, the one she used when she wanted you to feel small. Olivia is hysterical. The venue called her. The florist called her. Do you have any idea what you've... I canceled some purchases I made with my own money, I said, watching Buttercup, my oldest heifer, nudge her way to the front of the feeding line. That's all. That's all? That's all? Now she was yelling. You've ruined your sister's wedding, her one chance to marry into a good family, to have the life she deserves, and you're destroying it because of what? Because your feelings got hurt? I stabbed the pitchfork into the ground harder than necessary. No, Mama, because I got uninvited to an event I'm paying for by someone who's apparently ashamed I exist. She didn't mean it like that. Scarlett, you have to understand. Preston's family moves in certain circles. There are expectations. Appearances matter to these people. And I don't fit the appearance. It wasn't a question. The pause on the other end told me everything. It's not about you, she finally said. It's about giving Olivia her best chance. Can't you just help her without making it complicated? You don't have to come to the wedding. You can still support your sister. Something hot and sharp twisted in my chest. So I can fund it? I just can't attend it. I can be the bank, just not family? Don't be dramatic. I'm being the opposite of dramatic, Mama. I'm being clear. I pulled my phone off speaker and pressed it to my ear. I spent 9 years being reasonable, being understanding, being the one who sacrifices so everyone else gets what they want. And the payment for that? A letter telling me I'm not classy enough for my own sister's wedding. My voice cracked and I hated myself for it. So no, I'm done being reasonable. Scarlett, I hung up. Then I blocked her number. Then Olivia's. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone in the cow trough. By noon, I'd canceled the photographer, the cake, and the string quartet Olivia wanted for the ceremony. Each cancellation felt like pulling off a too-tight boot. Painful at first, then nothing but relief. Some vendors were sympathetic. Some were annoyed about the late notice. All of them processed my refund requests, minus the cancellation fees, which I accepted without complaint. I wasn't trying to get all my money back. I was trying to get my dignity back. The text started coming from numbers I didn't recognize. Olivia's friends, I guess, or maybe Preston's. Why are you doing this to your sister? You're really going to let jealousy ruin her happiness? This is so trashy. That one almost made me laugh. Trashy, right. I was trashy for withdrawing my own money, but Olivia uninviting me to an event I funded was just, what, sophisticated boundary setting? Then came the text that made everything click into place. It was from a number with a 561 area code. Palm Beach. Hi, Scarlett. This is Deirdre Whitmore, a friend of Olivia's from the yacht club. I'm so sorry to hear about your family's estate falling on hard times. Olivia mentioned the heritage cattle operation has been struggling since the market downturn. If there's anything we can do to help, please let us know. Preston's father has connections in agricultural investment. I read it twice, 3 times. Heritage cattle operation. Estate? Market downturn? I walked back to the house, pulled up Olivia's Instagram on my laptop. I'd never followed her, but her account was public, and started scrolling. There it was. Photos of our farm, but captions like it was something out of Town and Country magazine. Morning routines at the family estate. Grateful for my roots in sustainable agriculture. Heritage breed cattle of family legacy. The comments were filled with heart emojis and people calling her inspiring and so grounded. There wasn't a single photo of me, not one. But there were plenty of shots of the barn I'd rebuilt after the hurricane, the pastures I maintained, the cattle I'd bred and raised. She'd turned my life into her aesthetic, my work into her backstory. And apparently she'd told everyone we were gentlemen farmers playing at ranching, not a working livestock operation that kept me up at night worrying about feed costs and veterinary bills. I sat there at my kitchen table, still in my work clothes, and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about a wedding invitation. This was about erasure. Olivia hadn't just uninvited me. She'd been rewriting me out of existence for months, maybe years, turning herself into an heiress and me into, what, the help? A distant relative who managed the property? My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me... Hello? Is this Scarlett Hayes? A man's voice, cultured, careful. Depends on who's asking. This is Preston Ashford. I think we need to talk. Preston Ashford III had the kind of voice that came from expensive schools and country clubs. Smooth, measured, like he'd never raised it in his life and never needed to. But right now, there was an edge to it, something sharp underneath all that polish. Miss Hayes, I apologize for calling out of the blue, but I'm trying to understand what's happening with the wedding arrangements. I leaned back in my kitchen chair, looking out at the pasture where my cattle were grazing in the afternoon sun. What did Olivia tell you was happening? She said there was a misunderstanding, a family dispute. But when my mother started receiving cancellation notices from vendors, and every single one of them mentioned your name, not Olivia's, he trailed off, and I could hear him choosing his next words carefully. Miss Hayes, who are you exactly? What did Olivia tell you I was? The pause stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Then, she said you were a distant cousin, that you managed the family's agricultural property in Central Florida, that you'd been difficult about the wedding planning. A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep in my chest, the kind that hurts coming out. A distant cousin? That's creative, I'll give her that. So you're not... I'm her sister, Mr. Ashford. Her only sister. And that agricultural property? It's mine. I own it. I run it. I've been running it since our daddy died 9 years ago and left me with 60 acres, 40 head of cattle, and enough debt to choke a horse. I stood up, pacing now, the anger I'd been keeping locked down starting to leak through. And I've been paying for 65% of your wedding because Olivia told me she wanted to contribute equally to prove to your family she wasn't just marrying money. Except she doesn't have any money. She has me. Another long pause. She told me she was an only child. Well, that's awkward because I'm definitely real. And your parents, his voice got quieter. She said they died in a boating accident, that she inherited the property and the cattle operation after... Our mama's gonna be real surprised to hear she's dead, I said flatly. She was blowing up my phone just this morning, very much alive and very much angry that I canceled the ice sculpture. I heard him exhale, long and slow. Jesus Christ. Mr. Ashford, I'm going to be straight with you because you seem like maybe you didn't know you were marrying a professional liar. I got a letter 2 days ago inviting me to the wedding. Not a conversation, not a phone call, a handwritten letter telling me I didn't fit the aesthetic your families were trying to present. And maybe that's true. Maybe I do smell like cow manure and hard work. Maybe my hands are too rough and my clothes aren't fancy enough. But I'll be damned if I'm going to pay $87,000 to fund my own erasure. 87? He stopped. Olivia said her trust fund was covering most of the expenses. What trust fund? Preston, we're not wealthy. We're not even comfortable. I'm a working farmer who lives paycheck to paycheck and has been funneling every spare dollar into my sister's life for almost a decade. I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. So when you figure out what to do with that information, you'll let me know. But as far as the wedding goes, I'm done funding it. He thanked me, polite to the end, these rich people, and hung up. I sat there for a minute, staring at my phone, wondering if I detonated a bomb or dodged a bullet. Probably both. The call from First Bank of Okeechobee came 3 hours later. Rita Gonzalez, the loan officer who'd helped me refinance the farm equipment 2 years ago, sounded apologetic and furious at the same time. Scarlett, honey, I need you to come down here right now. Someone just tried to take out a $70,000 loan using your property as collateral. My blood went cold. What? The signature looked hinky to me, so I pulled your file to compare. It's not your signature, Scarlett. It's close, but it's not yours. And the email address on the application, it's not your email. I was already grabbing my truck keys. Whose email is it? It's registered to an Olivia Hayes at the same property address. I made it to the bank in 12 minutes, which might be a personal record. Rita had the paperwork spread out on her desk when I walked in. A loan application with my name on it, my property listed as collateral, and a signature that looked almost like mine, but wasn't. The loops were too perfect. The slant was too even. Olivia always had prettier handwriting than me. "This is fraud," she said quietly, pushing the papers toward me. "I need you to know if you want to press charges." I stared at that forged signature, at my sister's attempt to steal what I'd spent 9 years building, and felt something inside me turn to stone. This wasn't family drama anymore. This wasn't even just betrayal. This was criminal. "I need to think about it," I said, which was a lie. I knew exactly what I was going to do. But first, I needed to see just how deep this rabbit hole went. My phone rang as I was walking back to my truck. Unknown number again, but this time with a woman's voice, patrician and sharp. "Miss Hayes, this is Elizabeth Ashford, Preston's mother. I believe we need to have a conversation about your sister's creative storytelling. Would you be available for lunch tomorrow at the Breakers? I'm afraid this situation requires immediate clarification." Bitsy Ashford. I'd heard Olivia mention her with the kind of reverent fear usually reserved for hurricanes and the IRS. "Ma'am, I appreciate the invitation, but I don't think I own anything appropriate for the Breakers." "Miss Hayes," she said, and there was something almost warm in her voice now. "I don't care if you show up in overalls. I care about the truth. Can you be there at noon?" I looked down at my work boots, covered in dried mud and God knows what else, and made a decision that would change everything. "Yes, ma'am. I'll be there." The Breakers Palm Beach looked exactly like the kind of place where people like me weren't supposed to exist. All white columns and ocean views with valets who probably made more in tips than I cleared in a week. I'd spent 2 hours that morning trying to figure out what to wear, finally settling on my newest jeans, the ones without any permanent stains, a white button-down I usually saved for cattle auctions, and my good boots, the ones I'd polished. I looked like exactly what I was, a working farmer trying to pass in a world that didn't want me. The hostess took one look at me and her smile went tight. "Do you have a reservation?" "I'm meeting Elizabeth Ashford." The smile transformed instantly into something genuine. Money talks, even when it's somebody else's. Of course, right this way. Bitsy Ashford was waiting at a table overlooking the ocean, wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my truck payment. She stood when she saw me, and I braced myself for judgment, but what I got instead was an extended hand and an appraising look that felt more curious than cruel. "Miss Hayes, thank you for coming. Please, sit." I sat, feeling like a bull in a china shop, hyper-aware of every move I made. A waiter appeared immediately, with water and menus I didn't bother opening. Bitsy waved him away and leaned forward, folding her hands on the table. "I'm going to be direct because I think you'll appreciate that. My son is planning to marry a woman who has apparently lied about every significant aspect of her life. I've spent the last 24 hours making phone calls, and the picture I'm getting doesn't match anything Olivia has told us, so I need you to fill in the gaps." For the next 30 minutes, I told her everything. Not with anger, not with drama, just facts. Our father's death, the farm, the debt, the 9 years of supporting Olivia's lifestyle, the $87,000 I'd paid toward a wedding I'd been uninvited from. When I showed her the letter on my phone, I'd taken a picture of it before I'd tucked it in my kitchen drawer, her jaw tightened. "And the property?" she asked. "Olivia's shown us photos. She called it a heritage estate. She said it had been in your family for generations." "My daddy bought it in 1998. It's a working cattle farm, 60 acres. We run about 40 head right now, more during breeding season. It's not an estate. It's a job, a 7-day-a-week, wake up at 4 in the morning job." Bitsy sat back, and something that might have been respect flickered across her face. "She told Preston you were a cousin, that you managed property for the family trust." "There is no family trust. There's me breaking my back to keep the lights on while my sister plays dress-up with my money." The words came out harder than I meant them to. I took a breath. "I'm sorry, that wasn't—" "Don't apologize for being angry," Bitsy said. "You have every right." She pulled out her phone, typed something quickly, then looked back up at me. "The pre-wedding brunch is tomorrow at the country club, 1 o'clock. I think you should be there." My stomach dropped. "Ma'am, I think Olivia needs to face the consequences of her choices in front of the people she's been performing for, and my son needs to see exactly who he's been planning to marry." Her eyes were sharp, calculating. "Unless you'd rather handle this privately." I thought about that letter, about the forged loan documents, about 9 years of being treated like an ATM with a heartbeat. "No," I said. "I'll be there." The Palm Beach Country Club made the breakers look understated. I arrived at 12:55 in the same jeans and button-down, my hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, and followed the signs to the Oleander room where the brunch was being held. Through the French doors, I could see them. 50 people in designer sundresses and linen suits, champagne glasses catching the light, Olivia at the center in a pale pink dress that probably cost more than my monthly feed bill. I walked in and headed straight for the table where Preston and his parents were sitting. The room didn't go quiet immediately, but conversations started dying like dominoes falling. Bitsy saw me first and stood. "Scarlett, I'm so glad you could make it." Preston looked confused. A few other people glanced over, probably trying to figure out who I was and why I was dressed like I'd just come from a barn, which, to be fair, I had. Then Olivia saw me. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might actually faint. She started moving towards us, that pageant smile plastered on, damage control already forming behind her eyes. "Scarlett, what a surprise! I didn't know you were—" "The must be the cousin," Bitsy said to me, her voice carrying across the room with perfect clarity. "The one who manages the property." Every eye in the room turned to us. This was my moment, the point of no return. I met Olivia's panicked gaze and felt nothing but cold certainty. "No, ma'am. I'm the sister who owns it. The one who's been paying for this wedding." The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the ocean through the open windows. Preston's face went through about 5 different expressions in 3 seconds. Confusion, realization, shock, anger, betrayal. His father's mouth actually fell open. Olivia's smile cracked like old paint. "Scarlett, don't," she started. I pulled out my phone with steady hands. "This is the letter Olivia sent me 5 days ago." I handed it to Preston. "And these are the bank transfers showing exactly how much I've paid for this event." I swiped to the next screen. Venue deposit, catering, flowers, dress. Should I keep going? Preston read the letter and something in his face just died. He looked up at Olivia like he'd never seen her before. "You told me she was a cousin." "I can explain. You told me you were an only child. You told me your parents died. You told me the farm was your inheritance. You told me—" He stopped, shook his head. "What else did you lie about?" "Preston, please, if we could just talk privately." "Did you forge your sister's signature to take out a loan on her property?" Bitsy's voice was ice. "Because the bank seems to think so." The room erupted in whispers. Olivia's face went from white to red. "That was a misunderstanding. I was trying to help with wedding costs and I thought—" "You thought you'd commit fraud," I said quietly. "That's a felony, Olivia." Preston stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. He looked at Olivia one more time, and whatever he saw there made his decision. "The wedding's off," he said, then walked out. His parents followed without a word. Half the room started talking at once, the other half just stared at Olivia, who stood there, in her perfect pink dress, in the center of her perfect party, watching her perfect life collapse around her like a house of paper. I turned to leave, and she grabbed my arm. "You did this," she hissed. "You couldn't stand to see me happy, so you destroyed everything." I looked down to her hand on my arm, then back up at her face. "No, Olivia. You did this when you decided I wasn't good enough to exist in your world. I just stopped paying for the privilege of being erased." I walked out into the Florida sunshine, got in my truck, and drove back to Okeechobee with the windows down and the radio up, feeling lighter than I had in 9 years. I made it 3 days before Mama showed up. 3 days of feeding cattle, mending fence line, and pretending the silence from my blocked contacts didn't feel like a weight on my chest. I was in the equipment shed changing the oil on the tractor when I heard her car on the gravel drive. That old Lincoln she refused to give up because Daddy bought it for their 20th anniversary. I didn't go out to meet her, just kept working, letting her find me, which she did about 2 minutes later. She stood in the shed doorway, backlit by afternoon sun, arms crossed, jaw set in that way that used to make me apologize for things that weren't my fault. "Scarlett Marie, what have you done?" I didn't look up from the oil pan. Changed my oil. Might check the air filter next. "Don't you dare be cute with me. Olivia is devastated. Absolutely devastated. She's been at my house for 2 days, crying her eyes out because you—" Her voice cracked with fury. "Because you couldn't handle not being the center of attention for once in your life." That made me look up. The center of attention? Mama, she uninvited me to the wedding and told her fiancé I didn't exist. She was trying to fit in. Preston's family is important people, Scarlett. They move in circles where farmers, and she waved her hand at the shed, at me, at everything I'd built, where all this doesn't matter. She was trying to build a better life. By erasing me from hers? I stood up, wiping my hands on a rag that was already beyond saving. "And you don't see anything wrong with that. I see you destroying your sister's one chance at happiness because you're jealous she found a way out of this godforsaken place." The words came out like she'd been holding them in for years. Maybe she had. "You've always resented her, haven't you? Resented that she's beautiful and charming and didn't want to spend her life covered in dirt and cow manure?" Something hot and terrible was rising in my chest. I resented her? "Mama, I stayed. When Daddy died and left us drowning, I stayed. I gave up college. I gave up my life. I saved this farm that you're standing on right now, calling godforsaken. Your father left you that farm to keep you trapped here. The words exploded out of her, and the moment they landed, I watched her face change as she realized what she had said. The shed went completely still. Even the birds outside seemed to stop singing. What did you just say? She pressed her lips together, shaking her head. No. I took a step toward her. What did you mean? Dad left me the farm to trap me? Scarlett, where are the estate documents, Mama? This isn't the time. Where are they? My voice came out louder than I intended, echoing off the middle walls. Because I've been paying you lease payments for 9 years. $300 a month to lease the grazing land from the family estate. Where's that money been going? Her face went pale. That's between me and the estate lawyer. Show me the documents right now, or I'm calling Dale. Uncle Dale, Daddy's brother, who I hadn't spoken to since the funeral because Mama said he was trying to cause trouble with the estate. We stood there for a long moment, something ugly and true hanging in the air between us. Finally, she turned and walked back to her car. For a second, I thought she was leaving, but she just opened the trunk and pulled out a manila folder, worn at the edges like it had been opened 1,000 times. She handed it to me without meeting my eyes. The first document was Daddy's will. Simple, straightforward, dated 3 months before the accident that killed him. I leave my property, all 60 acres and improvements thereon, to my daughter, Scarlett Hayes, free and clear of encumbrances. Free and clear. I read it again, then again. Mama, this says the farm was left to me debt-free. There were other debts, operating costs, your father was never good with. What lease payments? My hands are shaking now. If he left it to me free and clear, what have I been paying you for? She wouldn't answer, just stood there looking at the ground like it might open up and swallow her. I kept digging through the folder. Bank statements showing deposits for me. $300 a month for 9 years. $32,400. And then at the bottom, another document. A life insurance policy. $500,000 paid out to Amanda Hayes, spouse, for the benefit of Scarlett Hayes, primary heir. My vision actually blurred. There was life insurance? It was meant to help with your education, but then you decided to stay here, so you what? Used it to fund Olivia's life while charging me rent on my own property? The anger came out cold, not hot, surgical. Where's the money, Mama? I used to give your sister opportunities, to give her a chance at something better than... She gestured at me, and I understood then what she had never said out loud. Something better than you. I turned away from her, afraid of what my face might show. That's when I saw the lockbox, small, metal, tucked in the bottom of the folder like an afterthought. What's this? Nothing, just some of your father's personal. I opened it. Inside were letters, maybe a dozen of them, all in Daddy's handwriting, all addressed to me. I pulled out the top one with hands that didn't feel like mine anymore. Dear Scarlett, it started. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and I need you to know something. You're the strongest person I've ever known. Watching you work this land, seeing how you understand the animals and the rhythms of farming, it's like watching poetry. I'm leaving you the farm because I know you'll protect it, grow it, make it something I could never have imagined. I'm so proud of you, more proud than I ever said when I was alive. Don't let anyone make you feel small for choosing this life. It's a good life, an honest life, and you're going to do it better than I could ever have. The paper crumpled in my grip. When did he write these? Scarlett, please, when did he write them, and why didn't I ever see them? Her voice broke on the last word. She was crying now, but I felt nothing. After his diagnosis, the first heart attack, he knew there might not be time, so he wrote letters to both of you. I gave Olivia's hers, but yours, you were so strong after he died, so capable. You kept them from me. The words fell like stones into water. You let me think for 9 years that I was alone, that I'd failed him by staying here instead of going to college. You charged me rent on my own property and told me it was my duty to support Olivia. And the whole time there was money, there were letters, there was proof that he wanted me here, that he was proud of me. I did what I thought was best. For who? I looked at her then, really looked, and saw a stranger. Get out. Scarlett, get out of my shed, off my property, and out of my life, now. She left. I stood there, surrounded by machinery and oil stains, holding letters from a dead man who loved me, and finally let myself break. The first domino fell 3 days after the brunch. Preston's statement was brief and classy, posted on both families' social media accounts. Due to irreconcilable differences regarding honesty and family values, Olivia Hayes and I have mutually decided to end our engagement. We ask for privacy during this time. Mutually. That was generous of him, considering she'd built their entire relationship on lies. The second domino came from a number I didn't recognize, but the voicemail was clear enough. Miss Hayes, this is Jennifer Kowalski from Meridian Design Group. I'm calling regarding your sister, Olivia Hayes. We've recently discovered she's been using company resources, including design software licenses and client databases, for personal wedding planning during work hours. Her employment has been terminated effective immediately. If you have any information regarding company property in her possession, please contact us. I listened to it twice, waiting to feel something other than numb. The satisfaction I'd expected never came. Just exhaustion. The third domino was the eviction notice Olivia posted on her Instagram story at 2 a.m. A photo of the letter taped to her apartment door captioned, "When your family destroys your life," with a string of broken heart emojis. I'd stopped subsidizing her rent the same day I canceled the wedding payments. Apparently, her $3,200 a month Brickell apartment wasn't going to float itself on a suddenly non-existent salary. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. Uncle Dale called on a Thursday afternoon while I was replacing a rotted fence post. I almost didn't answer, another unknown number, but something made me pick up. "Scarlett? It's your Uncle Dale, Dale Hayes." His voice was rough, uncertain, like he wasn't sure I'd remember him. Uncle Dale? I wedged the phone between my shoulder and ear, still working the post hole digger. "It's been a while. 9 years, since the funeral." He paused. "I heard about what happened with Olivia. And your mother. Word travels, even out here in Fort Pierce. Yeah, well, family drama's the one thing that spreads faster than gossip at a church picnic." He laughed, surprised. "You sound like your daddy." That's exactly something he would have said. Another pause, heavier this time. "Scarlett, I need to tell you something I should have told you a long time ago. When your daddy died, and Amanda said you kids didn't want to see me anymore, didn't want my help, I should have pushed harder. Should have called, should have made sure you knew you had family besides her." I stopped digging. "She said we didn't want to see you? Said you blamed me for not doing more when your daddy got sick. Said it was too painful seeing me because I looked too much like him." His voice cracked. "And I believed her because I didn't want to make things harder for you girls. But I should have known better. Amanda always had a way of controlling the narrative." "What do you mean?" "Your daddy and your mama, they loved each other, don't get me wrong, but she never understood why he wanted to farm, why he chose this life when he could have done anything else. She saw it as settling, as being small. And when you turned out just like him, stubborn, land proud, more comfortable with cattle than cocktail parties, she took it personal." I sat down right there in the dirt, the post hole digger forgotten. "She told me last week Daddy left me the farm to trap me?" The silence on the other end was heavy with fury. That woman. Scarlett, your daddy left you that farm because you loved it, because you understood it in a way nobody else did. He used to call me every Sunday, and half the conversation was him bragging about you, how you could read the weather, how you knew which heifer was going to calve before she did, how you'd turn that place into something special if you got the chance. I felt the first tear slowly roll down my cheek. He said that? Every single week. He was so damn proud of you. Dale's voice got rough. And Amanda hated it. Hated that you got his attention, his respect, his legacy. She wanted you to leave, to be something else, something she could brag about at her book club. When you stayed, when you chose the farm over college, she took it as a personal rejection. So she favored Olivia. Olivia was everything Amanda thought you should be. Pretty, social, ambitious in ways that made sense to city people. And Amanda fed that, encouraged it, probably because every success of Olivia's felt like proof that her way was right. I should have fought harder to stay in your life. Should have made sure you knew you had someone in your corner. I'm 36 years old, Uncle Dale. I've been doing this alone for 9 years. I'm fine. Are you? His question was gentle, not challenging. Because being strong and being fine aren't the same thing, kiddo. That cracked something open in my chest. I sat there in the Florida heat, pressed the phone to my ear and told him everything. The wedding, the letter, the fraud, the life insurance, the letters from Daddy I'd never seen, the 9 years of payments for property that was already mine. He listened to me without interrupting, and when I finally ran out of words, he was quiet for a long moment. Your daddy would have been furious. Not at you. Never at you. At what Amanda did. What she stole from you. Not just money, but time, confidence, his last words to you. Another pause. What are you going to do? About what? About the fact that you're not alone anymore. I'm here. I've got a cattle operation about 40 miles south. We could help each other. I could teach you some things your daddy never got the chance to. You could come to Sunday dinners, meet your cousins. You've got 3 of them now, by the way. They're dying to meet their famous Aunt Scarlett. Famous? I might have shown them your Instagram. That video of you delivering breech twins at midnight? Caleb watched it 17 times. Kid wants to be a vet now. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to a smile. Uncle Dale, I don't know if I'm ready for family that actually acts like family. Yeah, that's scary after what you've been through. But here's the thing, Scarlett. You've been strong enough to survive alone. Maybe it's time to see how strong you can be with people who actually have your back. I looked out at my farm. The land I'd bled for, the cattle I'd raised, the life I'd built from nothing but stubbornness and grief. And for the first time in 9 years, I let myself imagine what it might look like with help, with family, with pride instead of shame. Sunday dinner sounds nice, I said quietly. Good, I'll text you the address. And Scarlett, wear the work clothes. Nobody's putting on airs at my table. We eat like farmers and talk like family. Your daddy would have wanted it that way. After we hung up, I sat there for another 20 minutes, just breathing. Somewhere in Brickell, Olivia was packing up her life. Somewhere in Okeechobee, Mama was figuring out how to pay her own bills. And here, on 60 acres that were finally, truly mine, I was learning how to stop carrying the weight of people who never deserved it in the first place. 6 months changes a lot. The farm had expanded with 2 new pastures I'd leased from old Mr. Hendricks next door, and I'd brought in heritage Red Angus breeding stock that sold for triple what my regular cattle brought. I'd hired 2 hands, Mateo, who knew more about rotational grazing than I'd forgotten, and his daughter Sophia, who could fix any piece of equipment with duct tape and determination. The early mornings still came at 4 a.m., but now I had help. Now I had breathing room. And I had Jack Moreno, the large animal vet who'd been making house calls to my farm for 6 years and had finally asked me to dinner 3 months ago after delivering a complicated breech birth at midnight. You know, he'd said, elbow deep in a laboring heifer, most women I know wouldn't find this romantic, but watching you work is kinda doing it for me. I'd laughed so hard, I nearly dropped the obstetrics chains. We'd been together ever since. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated, just coffee before sunrise and dinner when we both remembered to eat. It felt easy, real, like something I'd earned. I was in the barn with Sophia, teaching her how to read hoof angles for trimming, when I heard the car on the gravel drive. Not a truck, not Uncle Dale's diesel rumble I'd gotten used to on Sunday mornings. A sedan. Small, probably a rental. Sophia looked at me, eyebrows raised. Expecting someone? No. But something in my gut already knew. Olivia got out of the car looking like someone I barely recognized. She'd lost weight, not in a healthy way, but in a forgot to eat because life fell apart way. Her hair was in a simple ponytail, no highlights, no professional blowout. She wore jeans, actual work jeans, not designer ones, and a plain t-shirt. No jewelry except Daddy's old class ring on a chain around her neck. I hadn't even known she had that. She stood by her car for a long moment, just looking at the farm like she was seeing it for the first time. Maybe she was. Maybe she'd never really looked before. I walked out of the barn slowly, wiping my hands on my jeans. Sophia stayed back, reading the room. Olivia. Hey, Scar. My childhood nickname. The one she hadn't used in 10 years. Can we talk? We sat on the porch with sweet tea between us, the same porch that Daddy used to sit after long days and tell me stories about his own father's farm. Olivia held her glass with both hands, not drinking, just needing something to do. The silence stretched so long, I almost filled it, but something made me wait. I need a job, she finally said, and a place to stay, and her voice cracked. I need to learn how to be someone I'm not ashamed of. I took a sip of tea, buying time. What happened to Mama's house? She's renting a room from her friend Carol. Smaller, cheaper. She's working part-time at the library. Olivia's laugh was bitter. Turns out when you spend 30 years living above your means on someone else's money, reality hits hard. And you? I've been couch surfing in Fort Lauderdale, picking up freelance design work when I can get it. Nobody wants to hire the girl who committed fraud for wedding planning. She set down the tea, met my eyes directly for the first time. I'm not here to ask for money. I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here because I need to start over. And I think, she swallowed hard, I think I need to start where I should have stayed. Here, with you, learning what work actually means. I've got 2 hands already, don't need a third. I'll do anything. Muck stalls, feed cattle, clean equipment, whatever you need, minimum wage. I've got about $800 left to my name, and I'm willing to work for room and board until I can pay rent. I studied her face, looking for the performance, the manipulation, the angle, but all I saw was exhaustion and something that might have been genuine humility. There's a room above the equipment shed. Mateo and Sophia use the other farmhand quarters. It's got a bed, a bathroom, a hot plate. No AC, just a fan. You'd share the bathroom with whoever's working late. Okay, 6 a.m. start time. 7 days a week for the first month, then we reassess. You'll be mucking stalls, hauling feed, mending fence. It's hard work, dirty work, the kind of work you spent 10 years running from. I know. She looked down at her hands, soft hands, manicured hands that had never done real labor. She spent so long trying not to be from here that I forgot who I actually was. Her eyes came back up, shining with tears she didn't let fall. You never forgot, Scar. You stayed. You did the work. You built something real. And I hated you for it. Because every time I looked at you, I saw everything I was running from, everything I thought I was better than. And now? Now I see everything I could have been if I hadn't been so busy being ashamed. She wiped her eyes quickly. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not even asking you to like me. I'm just asking for a chance to prove I can be worth something beyond a pretty face and someone else's credit card. The sun was setting over the pasture, turning everything gold and orange, and I thought about Daddy's letters, about how he wrote that I understood the rhythms of this place, the poetry of farming, about how he was proud of me for choosing this life. And I thought about what it meant to give someone a second chance when they didn't deserve it, but needed it anyway. I stood up, picked up both our glasses, and Olivia, if you run again, if you steal, if you lie, if you pull any of the shit you pulled before, you're gone. No second chances after this one. Understood. She stood too, and for a second, she looked like she might hug me, but she didn't. Just nodded once, grabbed her small suitcase from the car, and walked toward the equipment shed. Jack's truck pulled up 20 minutes later, and he found me on the porch, staring at nothing. He sat down beside me, didn't ask questions, just put his arm around my shoulders and waited. My sister's staying in the shed. Yeah? Yeah. I leaned into him, let myself be held. I might regret this. You might, but you'll know you tried. That's worth something. I looked out at my farm, my land, my cattle, my life that I'd built from grief and stubbornness and love. Olivia was up in that shed right now, probably crying, probably terrified, probably wondering what the hell she'd signed up for. Mama was in town learning to live within her means. Preston was somewhere in Palm Beach, presumably dating someone honest. Uncle Dale was 40 miles south with cousins I was getting to know. And I was here, exactly where Daddy wanted me, doing exactly what I was meant to do. It wasn't a perfect ending. Olivia might fail. She might run. She might prove that people don't really change. They just get better at hiding who they are. But she also might surprise me, might surprise herself. And either way, I'd finally learned the most important lesson. I didn't need anyone to see my worth. I'd built it myself, from the ground up, and nothing anyone took from me could change that. The cattle lowed in the distance. A breeze carried the smell of hay and earth. Jack kissed my temple, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt complete. So here's my question. Do people like Olivia deserve second chances, or was Scarlett too soft? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. I want to hear them. If you're Team Scarlett and think she earned every bit of that piece, smash that like button. Subscribe for more stories about people who finally chose themselves. And tell me, where are you watching from? Because something tells me boundary setting hits different when you've lived it. Turn on notifications. More coming soon.